All right. So, my wife just brought me coffee from our favorite little coffee shop down the street called Cultivate. So, I figure it's a good time to get started. So, welcome to Coding with Jess, where you code along with me while I work on a thing. So, I am pretty excited about today's session, and it's going to be a little bit different than the last 5 or 6 or 7 sessions that I've done, in that this is not a live stream. So, I'm not live streaming this to the internet and then it's hitting YouTube right away. Instead, I'm recording it, and I'm going to do a little bit of post-processing and then upload it as a recording. We'll see if that's more or less effective, whether people like it better or worse. But anyway, today's recorded and not live streamed, so if you're seeing this, you're seeing it something that happened in the past, as opposed to me doing it live right in front of you. But that aside, what are we going to be talking about today? So I am very excited to dig into something today. Yesterday on the live stream, we actually worked on converting my personal website from Ruby and Sinatra to GatsbyJS. That conversion went swimmingly well. It took about 5 hours or so to do the whole thing, and we finished it up, and it is now live in production on Netlify. I made a couple of changes to the layout to kind of bring it into the 2020. After all, the original layout was made in 2010. And so, yeah, we've updated it by 10 years. It looks good on mobile now. And the next thing that I wanted to do was add some new features to my personal site that allowed me to build a workflow around the kind of things that basically allowed me to get my ideas out more freely through my personal site. So I mentioned yesterday that that I take extensive notes, both in a physical notebook that I always have with me. In fact, I have a stack of 15 of books just like this that are completely full from front to back, that span the last 10 years of my professional career. I also take notes in Bear app, and before that I used Simple Note, and so I have a long history of like taking notes extensively. And what I've been doing recently is trying to convert those notes, make it easier for me to take those notes and convert them into a written article. Usually I'm a pretty slow writer when it comes to writing articles, but I think that even the notes that I take could be valuable to get out there on the internet and kind of to start getting a reaction to. So this morning I actually spent some time reading some really cool stuff and watching some videos that are around an idea that I'm really inspired by, around knowledge management systems and collaboration, how we collaborate with computing devices. And so these are ideas that I've been reading about and writing about and taking notes about for a long time. Everything from Seymour Papert to Doug Engelbart to Brett Victor to this morning I was watching a Doug Engelbart talk and reading Fred books on collaboration. So I've been reading and thinking about this stuff for a while, and I'm excited to get some of them out of my head and out of my little personal notebook and onto my personal website, where I can actually start linking to it and kind of opening the conversation up. So that's what we're going to do today. But we're going to do it, of course, in the nerdiest, like, coding with Jess way possible, of actually building some functionality to have a writing pipeline that flows from my website, from my note taking process into my website as seamlessly as possible. So that's what we're going to work on today. So let's dive in. So I'm actually going to start at my whiteboard today. So I apologize because my microphone is right here, and as I move further and further away from the microphone, it gets quieter and quieter. I know that that's a downside of my live streaming setup, and so I am eventually going to reconcile that with having like a mic that's on me all the time so that I can move about freely and yet the audio doesn't differ. But apologize if it gets kind of quiet at some points while we're working on the whiteboard. So let me go ahead and start a timer, and we're going to work in 25-minute timers, tomato timer, or Pomodoros, just like we always do on Coding with Jess. We'll probably do 4 Pomodoros, so this session should be right at about 2 hours long. And yeah, hopefully you'll stick around and learn something from it, as I do as well, since I'm going to be learning as well. So let me first start by kind of like defining our objectives. So what I mentioned is I want a writing system. Y'all, I cannot underscore how excited I am about like working on this. This is something I've been thinking about for months and months, and have actually started pioneering some of this stuff. Yeah, I actually have a whole reading workflow that I want to introduce oh gosh. So maybe I'll write about that tomorrow and use the same workflow to get that writing up on the web. Anyway, okay, so setting my excitement aside for a second. What I want to work on is a writing system. And so I want to seamlessly move from notes to published. And then the implication is there on personal website. So some place where I can actually get this out there and quickly get it out. Okay. What I have right now, if you think I kind of take notes, and we'll go move this from like left to right. So my note-taking process right now takes place in two different places. So I have Bear app, which I can't really draw the Bear app logo or anything, but it looks something like this, and he's smiling and something, yeah, whatever. And I have a bunch of notes in Bear app that are on different topics, and they're different lengths. Some of them are very long, some of them are very short. And they all link, some of them link to each other, some of them don't, some of them are just isolated and sitting out, that kind of stuff. So these are my digital notes. Digital notes. I guess to make this like a little bit more Bear appy, I could like color it in red. Okay, totally egregious graphical effect there. Okay, so I've got my digital notes, and then I have my paper notes as well. Paper notebook. My paper notebook is more of a stream of consciousness, meaning that I am writing in it on a daily basis, and as I'm having an idea or two or four, they get written down in that notebook in order, and so they kind of get developed over time in that notebook. And so I might have some notes here and notes here and that kind of stuff. Mostly one of the things that I probably want to publish out of my paper notebooks would be some of my diagrams. As I'm like visually representing some of these ideas, I might want to publish those out to specific notes. Okay, so then we've got notes over here, and then what we want is on our personal site under jessmart.in/something. I want to have a page that I can reference. It's kind of under JM articles, and that I can link to. So the big question for us right now is what is in the middle here? So let's quickly iterate through a couple of different options about what could be in the middle there, and then we can kind of like pick out a workflow. So options. Actually, before I talk about options, I want to talk about my like desired characteristics. So I talked about seamlessly moving from notes to published. What I'd love to be able to do is edit freely, mobile and desktop, and then I'd like to be able to review edits before publish. I don't think I want, I don't know, but I don't think I want my jessmart.in to be an exact sync of everything, or at least a selected series of notes from my Bear app. I think that I actually want to be able to like review them before I go ahead and post them out. So I want to edit freely. So I want to have the ability to like, so in other words, I want some sort of digital app like Bear or something that allows me to quickly type and on mobile and on desktop. And by the way, I am open to replacing Bear if necessary. I wouldn't be happy to do it because I have a lot of, I've been using it for years, and I have a lot of muscle memory built up in using that particular tool, and as well as a lot of notes that I'd have to migrate. So it would be a not inconsequential move. So I want to review edits before publish. I'd also like to be able to welcome edits / comments / improvements. So the ideal interface for me, because I'm a coder, would be like a GitHub type interface where I could let about a GitHub pull review or pull request, where people could like edit my posts and offer something back or potentially leave comments on it. I could use GitHub issues. That would be interesting in terms of an idea here. GitHub issues. Review edits before publish. I think a possible thing here is that a pull request per edit, maybe. In terms of being edited freely, I want some kind of Markdown tool, because that Markdown is my writing tool of choice. And then I want to be able to do, ideally I'd be able to publish from mobile. So that would be nice, because if I did do some quick edits to an article, type something up on my mobile app, then being able to edit from there would be pretty sweet. All right, so this is the middle ground. I want to be able to get things from my note-taking system through some process or pipeline that then eventually goes out to GitHub. Not GitHub, sorry, my personal site, and updates that. Let's see. So I think one possible pipeline, and I'll kind of write it up here. One possible pipeline could be bare note to Markdown file to pull request updated or new Markdown file to a pull request on GitHub, and then close PR, or sorry, not close, merge. Merge PR to publish. So I already do one. This already exists as well. This thing already exists. Check. Bare notes already exist. I already can do merge request to publish. So then the question is, could I, then it becomes really simple, right? Can I monitor bare notes, and as they change, create a Markdown file in a GitHub repo? Is this possible? So that should be the very first thing we dig into, and then we can kind of go from there. If that workflow works, which GitHub or Bear does have this weird X callback API that we'll have to look into. If that workflow works, then we might be able to just use everything else unchanged in our workflow, which would be really exciting, and potentially in the next hour and a half get our actual article that I wrote up this morning. Okay, so you should be looking at my screen now, hopefully. I'm gonna make sure that it's actually working, because I'm using a remote control tool that I have not used in the past. Sweet, it looks like it is. So I can actually change my settings with like a little device over here with a tablet, and be able to change between a view of just my face, which is you should be seeing right now, to my actual desktop. So pretty neat. But again, I wanted to make sure it was actually working. Okay, let's dig in and get started. Okay, let's see. So let me show you what I'm thinking about getting out. So this morning I took some time to write on this topic that I'm really interested in, called real-time collaborative systems. So here's an example of a bare note that I would like to turn into, that's in Markdown format, that I would like to turn into a pull request on GitHub. So let's see how that might actually work. Real-time collaboration. Yeah, I want to get this published. So the end goal is get this published to my personal website, but do it in such a way that it's really straightforward and easy to do. So okay, so let's see. So the first step that we were talking about is we want to answer the question: is it possible to actually get an updated or new Markdown file from Bear Note and from our using the Bear API? So let's go find out what exactly the Bear App API lets me do. I do not know. Bear App API. Okay, here we go. Okay, so Bear implements, let me make this a couple of sizes bigger for y'all that are following along. Bear implements the X callback URL protocol, which allows iOS and Mac developers to expose and document API methods they make available to other apps and return useful data. Bear's URL scheme actions look like this. Bear X callback URL action with X success and X error available, X callback parameters. All right, so let's see. There's different actions here, including open a note. So what I'm looking for first as I'm scanning through this is how would I know when something changes? Right? So like one of the key challenges here is I'm going to need to do a comparison of some text, the note in Bear with the notes that I've already uploaded. So I may actually have to do those comparisons outside of Bear. It looks like this is a very, let me see, what is sync? Sync status. I'm pretty sure sync just syncs across devices, which doesn't really help me. Yeah, that doesn't really help me. Okay, so oh wow. What is this? Build your open note action? This looks pretty cool. XURL builder. Okay, that might be something we can play with here that helps us get started. Okay. Oh, I could do windowing because there's a modification date parameter on the open note. And so I could look for certain Bear notes that have been modified after a certain time, and we could check. That would definitely beat the heck out of, we could like set up a script that checks once every, you know, once every 10 minutes or once every 5 minutes or once every hour, or it could be something that we run manually. All right, let's see if we can write a really simple proof of concept to grab an open note from Bear, any open note from Bear, and then export it as Markdown to another like save it to a file. Let's see, make that a little bigger. X callback URL. Interesting. So can I actually do this? Oh, interesting. But see, that's just going to call into Bear. That's not going to help me. That's actually going to open Bear in a certain way. So is there like an export note? Open note, create, add text, add file, tags, open tag, delete tag, archive, untag, to do, lock today, search, grab URL. What is grab URL? Creates a new note with the contents of a web page. Nope. All right, let's just do some quick Google searching to see if someone else has solved this problem already. But Bear can be automated using its. Ooh, here we go. Yeah, that's exactly what I'd like to do. Something like this. Okay, so somebody's used workflow on iOS to export Bear to WordPress. Let's see, what if I search for export Bear app note GitHub. Bear Power Pack. Has a great implementation of export formats, X callback URLs in iOS, making extension like these possible. Bear voice recording. How old is this? April 6, 2019. Okay. Workflow can be triggered from today widget. Apple Notes export to Bear. These are things that are exported to Bear. Published from Bear to WordPress. That's on iOS though. Markdown export and sync of Bear notes. Export and round trip sync of Bear notes to OneDrive, Dropbox, etc. Huh, that sounds interesting. Wonder how it's done. Let's go see. Python script for export and round trip of sync and edit online with stack edit or use a Markdown editor. Man, that round trip sync would be ridiculous. Bear notes exploited as plain Markdown. That's awesome. Or text bundles with images. I like this. I like this. Syncs external edits back into Bear. That is ridiculous. Replaces text in the original note with X callback. Wow. That is crazy. Whoa. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Checks modified timestamp on database.SQLite. So this reads the database.SQLite. Can I do that? Is that the way I'd want to do that? Okay, sets Bear node IDs are at the computed. Interesting. So it seems like one workflow might be not using the X callback URL, but actually accessing the SQLite database. Where are Bear's notes located? Oh my goodness. Huh. Okay, let me quit Bear. Library, group containers. Oops. There's that. Application data. No application knows how to open a SQLite. There are some SQLite browsers. So maybe I end up writing some Ruby to do this. Okay, now I'm thinking a little bit differently about this, but let's see if we can get the schema of this database first by actually getting this. Download. There we go. Ooh, I can do it via brewcask. I'd rather do it that way. Brewcask install. The reason I'm doing that via brewcask, by the way, is I use brewcask to do reinstalls of my website. Not reinstalls of my website. reinstalls of my computer fairly often, and so I try to maintain almost all of my software in repeatable install. Any software that I install through some repeatable install method like Brewcask or MAS, which is like a Mac App Store command line utility. But I haven't done a brew in a while, so it could be that this update takes a long time. Come on. Okay, so another option here as we're thinking through this, and I'm looking at my whiteboard here, is we may be able to take these notes, these bare notes, via a SQLite database, read the SQLite database, and then pull out the specific notes that we want, and then push over a pull request to GitHub. That could be pretty cool. The other thing we could do, what I'll probably want to do is do some sort of like tagging, or I'll probably want to do some sort of tagging or something, so that we only grab specified bare app notes. And I guess, is that Ruby script also going to need to, let's see, what would that Ruby script do? So while I'm still waiting on updating Homebrew, so I'm just going to kind of write on my whiteboard some of the things that might actually do. Ruby. So if we had a Ruby script, we could be like open SQLite DB, read notes edited after X with tag X take. So this is the interesting part. Since we're doing it all locally on, if I'm doing it all locally on a machine, so this interesting. So we now have a couple of options. Is this hosted locally? Or are we going to host this somewhere in the cloud where that SQLite database everything will happen there? If we're hosting this locally, then we might take the file and store in GH repo locally, and then create PR stage changes, commit, and then create a PR. Which can all be done but I think it would be best to do this through, this could all be done via the CLI, but it might be better like command line interface and like run locally, but that's probably more error prone. It probably would be better to do it via API, use the GitHub API to do this. Very interesting. But yeah, if this SQLite database were hosted somewhere in the cloud, all right, our time is up for our first Pomodoro, so I'm going to take a 5-minute break and we will be back in just a minute. See ya. All right, so we are back. I have to admit, I had to resist the urge to keep going on this during the break and wait for y'all to be back here with me after the 5 minutes. So I was forcing myself to take that entire Pomodoro break, which is an important thing to do when you're like going to be working for a long period of time. Is sometimes force yourself to step away. All right. Anyway, meta commentary aside, here we are. So I have the SQLite DB browser, so we can now open the database. A couple of thoughts I had was maybe I ship the entire SQLite file into the cloud and then have some a series of steps in the SQLite file, or a series of steps that are run by a script in the cloud that do everything we need to do via API through GitHub and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, we can look at this. I want to make sure that we're not building too much of a house of cards, but I'm also not afraid to put together a fairly fast and dirty solution to this problem. Okay, so one thing I wanted to know though was how big is this database? And we are looking at around 6.4 megs. So it is not huge. Transferring that to the cloud would be not a big deal. So let me go and open database. Let's see if that has registered. Yep, it has. Very cool. And it failed to open. Why is that? Let's try opening DB browser directly. Ah, that's what I thought. Okay, so good old Apple preventing me from doing what I know I want to do. I have to hit Command O and open it. Oh, sorry, I have to right click and click open the very first time to override Apple's silly sandboxing stuff that I don't care anything about. All right, and then let's go back to this. This should now open it. Boom, there it is. Okay, so let's see how they have this laid out. Good old, I'm surprised they don't have like a help article on this, but they might, so we can go look at that in a second. Changes, change items. So there's ZFS notes. I would expect that to be all of my notes. It looks like that this is the DB structure that I'm looking at. If I were to browse data and go to ZFS note, there's a lot of data there. Sure enough, okay, so unique identifiers. There's the text, there's the subtitle. Last editing device, that's fascinating. Interesting to look at this data as raw data. There's a unique identifier for things. There's the title. Z titles. I hope none of this is too embarrassing in terms of information. I don't think it is, but yeah, so there you go. You get your Z title, Z texts, Z unique identifiers, and then some other things like has images, archived, images, has files, locked, order. I wonder if here's the tags. That's interesting. Z7 tags. So we may need to, it may be somewhat tricky to find out. Here we go. Here are my note tags. And so, let's see. There is a Z underscore PK. I guess that's a primary key. Z underscore primary key. I was wondering if there's like a note ID here that we could take into account. Trash to do ipsync. Yeah, I bet we could figure out how to map our tags onto notes and then be able to pull specific notes from this file. All in all, pretty cool, pretty easy to open a SQLite database using Rails. So we can, or sorry, Ruby. I was going to say Rails because I'm thinking Active Record, but that should be a pretty straightforward solution. So if we close this, close that. Excuse me. Okay, so now if we, I think we have a pretty interesting possible solution, which is take the SQLite database that contains all the bare notes, and then actually go through and extract the note content that we want, and then maybe use the GitHub API to create commits, to upload files, create commits, that kind of stuff. Let's see what the GitHub API resort. I wonder if I can like create and update files in a GitHub repo using the GitHub API. I've never thought about doing this before, so pretty interesting usage. Let's see. Is there interactions, issues? I wouldn't necessarily expect you to be able to do this through like create commits and all of that kind of stuff, but I don't know. It depends on how robust they've made their there you go. Create a commit. The SHA of the tree object. All right, let me do a quick Google search on how to do this because that might be a lot faster. Add file, create commit, create pull request, GitHub API. There we go. How to create pull requests automatically. Introducing one of the GitHub actions I wrote. A generic action to automatically create a pull request for changes to your repository in the Actions workspace. Interestingly, I was thinking about this too. Synchronization with external data sources. So something we could do is we could actually write a GitHub action that does all of the things we want it to do. So not sure exactly how we'd kick that off. So open questions in terms of GitHub actions would be, how do we kick off? Sorry, I'm reading this text here. So this is how to define a GitHub pull request, or sorry, a create pull request action. So create pull request workflow. It runs on a cron. Simple example, adds a dated report to a repository. Create report file, runs date that. Create pull request. Where's the commit actually happen? I guess this file, report.txt, will automatically get picked up by. I'm missing something here. Yeah, okay, let me look at this. Add report file. Add report file is the commit message. So it must just take all diffs. It does create example patches. Example workflow to automate periodic dependency updates. Wow, this would be super slick. Interesting. So we could write a GitHub workflow that does all of the creation, the pull request creation stuff. The challenge there is, is what script actually does the read, well, one, where is the SQLite database stored? And two, what script actually takes that SQLite database and extracts the new Markdown files from it? Those are interesting questions. It almost, yeah. There's a lot of interesting questions here, actually, in terms of like what the title of the file would be. So I think the next step I want to take, because I'm thinking through, we're getting down into the weeds of like how any one individual step of this could work. One of the things that I've learned from building features like this in the past is that you want to go end to end as soon as possible, meaning you want to start with the first thing and then get all the way to the end step of having it published on your website. You want to get through that entire process one time, no matter how you get through it, like stumbling through it manually, whatever. And then inevitably you'll discover and learn things along the way in terms of going end to end. So I think what we need to do next is actually play computer for a second here and do every step in this flow manually and then see what we learn in the process. So let's do that. Okay. For the sake of it's not that important to do it, we're going to do everything as manually as possible. I'm just going to open Bear app and we have our, let's see if we can get this published on my website via a commit message, but doing everything then the entirely manual non-automated way. So let's see. If I were to do this, I think I can click .md and that will export the file. So let's get that onto, let's put it in the Jess Martin Gatsby source folder, pages maybe. This is going to be a new page. This is going to be really interesting because I don't know how routes work in Gatsby. There's all sorts of stuff I don't know about Gatsby. Remember yesterday we just got started getting it up and running. So this is going to be interesting today to see how this actually works. Alrighty. The next thing to read about then, so we have the file out of here and I'm just going to drop it in. I don't want to drop it in pages because I think it's going to try to auto build. What the heck, just drop it in pages. Let's see what that gives us. So now we have this real-time collaborative systems markdown file. Looks good to me. Exciting that is there. Oh, saving, interesting. Prettier, I guess I have prettier set up to work on markdown files as well. Okay, that wasn't what I expected to happen. Let's see. CD documents code Jess Martin Gatsby. Okay, we got this new file. We need to do a Gatsby develop. I think this will blow up because it's got a new kind of file in there that it doesn't know what to do with. So while the Gatsby develop is beginning, I'm going to search for Gatsby Markdown. And we're going to read about adding Markdown pages. All right, so adding reading files into Gatsby from the file system. Gatsby can use Markdown files to create pages in your site. Good. You add plugins to read and understand folders with Markdown files, and then folders with Markdown files, and then create, and from them create pages automatically. Okay. Here are the steps followed for making it happen. Read files into Gatsby from the file system. Transform Markdown to HTML in Frontmatter. Frontmatter is super important, which is something I was just thinking about. We may want to start in a convention in our Bear app of having certain Frontmatter be there in the Markdown file, just so it knows what to do with files that I want to publish. Add a Markdown file, create a component, a page component for the Markdown files, create static pages using the create page API. Yeesh, this doesn't seem like exactly what I want to do, but we will, let's walk through the process. So 2 ways to add a plugin. Why am I adding a plugin? I'm not even sure. Let's just keep going. Let's go through this from top to bottom and see if it makes sense. We'll use the transformer remark to recognize files which are marked down and read their content. Create a folder in the source directory called markdown-pages. Okay. I'm looking to see if it gave me any warnings, but it doesn't appear to have given me any warnings. Interesting. I wonder what would happen if I tried to navigate to that /real-time collaborative systems. So it just doesn't generate a page for that. All right, it said create a new folder inside the source directory, so we'll do that. mkdir-p source / we'll call it Markdown pages as it recommends, and then in the future we may want to change that to something more sensible. And now we'll move that source file, source pages, real-time pages, to Markdown pages. So now our status shows that we should have a single change called source Markdown pages. All right, what's next? Formatter for metadata in Markdown files. Yep, so you need some, this is the Markdown Frontmatter that was being discussed up above. If you've never worked with Markdown Frontmatter before, it basically says, this says where should the article, what URL should the article be accessible at. I'm not sure if date is actually important. I don't believe it is, and then title will definitely be important. Yes. So this is going to be a new directory where we create a template that wraps all of our Markdown files. Okay. This is something I've wanted to do anyway. Two things about this file. Markdown remark Frontmatter. So it's reading from the Frontmatter the date, the slug, and the title, which then remember what's the slug? The slug should be the URL, right? Yeah. Create static pages. Okay, this part I'm not so sure about. Gatsby exposes a powerful Node.js API, which allows for functionality such as creating dynamic pages. This API is available under Gatsby Node.js. Gatsby calls the create pages API if present at build time with injected parameters, actions, and GraphQL. So this is in Gatsby Node.js, which I noticed is not being used yet. So then we would want, so this is what's going to iterate over every page in the Markdown pages directory and then create a page for each one of them. Well, I guess it's kind of cool that you have control over this at that. It's not bad that I would be able to control exactly how pages are created. Most of the time I would expect this to like be done for me using most blogging engines, but I guess that's one of the reasons that I was wanting to use Gatsby, is that it's going to give me a little bit more control over some of these things. And with control being given to me, that means I have more responsibility. Okay, I think this all makes sense, so we're just going to go from the top down. We've got 6.5 minutes here. Let's go as fast as we can now that I feel like I understand it. And we're going to go through this process and see if we can get this blog post added. So let's do an npm install to get, what was this again? Gatsby source file system. So that allows me to read things from the file system, I guess. Why you couldn't do that already, I don't know. This feels weird. Sourced. I guess it allows me to source things that are outside of the typical Gatsby build. Anyway, I'm going to go over to our Gatsby config where I'm going to configure this plugin. Gatsby config while npm is taking care of installing it. So here's all of our plugins down here at the bottom. Going to add a new block for this plugin. You may remember yesterday from my live stream that things were not highlighting in this file appropriately. So, haha, I pasted in a new one and for some reason it worked this time. Strange, man. Strange. I don't know why that is. Looks like this has both a name and a path here. So I've now sourced all the, why do npm installs take so long? Okay. Now I need to get the markdown to HTML and process the front matter. So let me go ahead and paste this front matter in. I'm not planning on using dates, although I may want to use like the last updated. My model here for creating these types of articles is more similar to Martin Fowler's website, where he doesn't actually, he has more guides. I guess he does use a date as well, that are all kind of linked together. So you could go, whoops. They do have dates. Interesting. Just kind of browsing around his. Interesting. Yeah, I've always liked his way of having different little sections where you can talk about ideas and tag them. And so yeah, I'm planning on building something along these lines. But he does definitely have dates here. He also has different authors now that he's got different people writing here. Okay. Let's go see if npm install has finished. It has. Sweet. All right, now we need to npm install the next thing. Yay. Which is, did I miss it already? Oh, there it is. Gatsby transformer remark. All right. Develop process needs to be restarted. I think I need to do a yarn, if I remember correctly. And then I could do a, anyone could explain to me why I need to do that yarn after that npm install. I am all ears. Again, I don't fully understand how the package managers work in JavaScript, but you can get a surprising amount done without understanding the details of that kind of stuff. Okay, so let's go to our markdown pages and make sure that we actually have our front matter up here at the top. Slug is going to be articles / real-time collaborative systems. Let's do a Gatsby develop. '0601. Useful to go through this whole process manually because it definitely, yep, that's what I thought. So we don't have that plugin. I don't know how I missed the install step for that, but there it is. Of course, this will take freaking forever because npm install. I don't know if I could do like a yarn add there and it would be like 1,000 times faster, or I don't know. All right, while we're waiting for that to happen, we have gotten our metadata there. Okay, so now we need a blog template.js folder. So let's go ahead and create a folder inside source. mkdir source blog. Sorry, source templates. Oh, all right. It's break time. We'll be back in 5 minutes to continue going through getting a Markdown post up on my Gatsby website and pull that post. Hopefully in the second half of this time together, we'll actually pull that post from our Bear app. But I'll And we're back. All right, so we're starting our next Pomodoro. In our previous two Pomodoros, we have, just to recap, we've explored a different, basically the characteristics of the writing system that I would like to build for myself. That involves my Bear app writing and then publishing on my personal blog, which now runs in Gatsby as of yesterday. And then in the second Pomodoro, we started by exploring the GitHub API, GitHub Actions, as well as the SQLite format of the Bear Notes database that we could use to extract the things we want from it. And now we are going through each step of the workflow manually to make sure that we can, as we play computer, go through the steps ourselves, and we'll definitely uncover some things and learn some things in that process before we then go and automate each one of those steps with a script. So we are in the middle of our process of getting a blog post on my new website that is in Markdown format. So let's run Gatsby develop. We've installed a couple of new plugins to help with this process as we walk through the how-to guide on this on Gatsby's website. And it looks like maybe we have a successful run. Let's see. Yep. So it's successful, but we should not see localhost 8000 any blog posts yet. So if I go to articles / real-time collaborative systems, yeah, we do not see the article there yet. We should see it hopefully soon. Let's go see what we're doing here. Okay, so our next, when I say see it soon, we have a couple more steps we need to go through to actually make things work. So I started by creating a template. This is going to be the template that wraps all of our blog post pages. So we'll go over to here, create a folder in source called templates, and then inside of that folder, we're going to create a new file. This file will be called blog template.js. I'm not cool enough to write TSX stuff yet. I'll get there. Don't worry. Let me copy this whole section and just drop it in. Okay, so if we look at this, I'm going to go drop the comments that I don't need. Data.markdown remark holds your post data. Which is then being destructured into the front matter in the HTML. Okay. And then once it's destructured into front matter in HTML, we take the actual title from the front matter and the date and put them here and here. Dangerously set inner HTML. Hilarious. Hilarious. Okay, and so that creates the template, but we now need to create each one of the actual pages, and that's where this create page API that's running in Gatsby Node comes into effect. So Gatsby Node apparently runs every single time that Gatsby is started. So you can delete this file if you're not using it, but I am using it. Oh yes, I am. And let's see here. Copy this now because we'll probably want to use it fairly verbatim as well, but I'll walk through each one of the lines and talk about it before I just save it. So now we have, oh, actually, now that I was thinking about it, we actually want to check out a branch. We want to be working in a branch and not on master anymore. Okay, so we've got create pages here. This is a function that's going to get called every time that Gatsby starts. And so let's see what that function actually does in this case. Well, one thing we do is we grab the blog template. We use GraphQL to query all of our Markdown files, all Markdown remark. This seems strange to me. Ah, here we go. Maybe remote result. How does it know where to look for my files? How does this know? Because there's a GraphQL query that's going to get run. And then we're going to create a page for each one of them. Let me see, maybe it's in the config. Yes. Okay. So the Gatsby source file system, again, there's some magic happening with Gatsby transformer remark that I don't fully understand. Let's go see if it's covered in here. A GraphQL query is made in the second half of the file to get the markdown data. Gatsby has auto-magically given you all the markdown meta. No, I know that part. There's something missing here. I don't doubt that it's going to work, by the way. What I'm a little confused by is how Gatsby transformer remark actually works. It must know by default to look in source / markdown - pages. That's the only thing that makes sense. All right, so now I'm on the actual plugin site. Parses markdown files using remark. Options. Parsing algorithm. Each markdown file is parsed into a node. Get the table of contents. Nice. Wow, that's pretty cool. Prune length, format, gray matter options. Well, that's cool to know that there's a table of contents possibility. I might actually use that in our, especially because some of my posts tend to be fairly long, and I also use H1s, H2s, H3s meaningfully. Okay, so I still don't understand why this works, but in the interest of time, I'm just going to keep moving and hope that it does work. All right. So now we need to restart Gatsby develop because we've changed our Gatsby node .js file, and so that actually means that we need it to rerun. That's like a configuration level thing in Gatsby here. All right. Whoa! There we are. Boom. The post is up. Real-time collaborative systems. Slick. Okay. It's horribly ugly. And that's okay because our blog template is very, very simple. So let's see what we might do to make this not as ugly. Also, it doesn't handle my line breaks the way I expected. Did I not have them? Oh, it's GitHub flavor markdown. Bet I have to do this. Boom, here we go. And then the same thing here. References. Now eventually we're going to want to either push those changes back into back here, or yeah, that's interesting. Eventually I would want to be making those changes here in Bear and then having them smoothly transfer over along, as well as the whole like prettier that clean this up. We shouldn't take that for granted. So we're gonna need to figure that out, but all in all, this is pretty neat. So let's go ahead and go to let's go open a PR for this. Boop. Oh, I haven't even pushed the branch up, or I haven't even committed any of the code. Okay, git add dot, this is a massive commit, add markdown formatted articles. Git push origin, markdown articles, sync that with our remote, and then, all right. Okay, so let's see. That should now be up on the remote website. I'm going to do compare and pull request. on the remote website, the GitHub remote. Show Markdown formatted articles. All right, let's see. Followed this walkthrough to add Markdown, add the ability to show .md files as pages on my personal site. This is part of the writing workflow that I'm working on. All right, let's create this PR. Now, I believe with the magic of Netlify, we will actually get a deploy preview of some sort for this particular branch. I think that's how this works. Deploy preview number 3, building right now. Cool. So we can actually test this out on a deploy preview, which I'm excited to do, and see how that works. Hold on just one second. I'll be ready in like 13.
There's one thing I really want to show you.
You have to wait 13 minutes, okay? So my timer's up. I'll be inside in a minute. Okay?
Okay.
Love you. That was my daughter, Mariah. My kids frequently come out to my office to say hi and check on me, how I'm doing throughout the day. So I guess if this is your first time seeing my kids on a live cast or live stream or a video, get used to it because they will show up from time to time. Okay, so that deploy preview is building. Our PR is available to review. Let's do a real quick review of our own PR. I think we understand what's going on here. Yep, all that looks good. Need to make this layout more prettified, like with a site header and such. All right. All right, we'll make that better in just a minute, but cool to see this. Site is live. Oh, nice. Preview. Articles / real-time collaborative systems. Oh, that is super cool. I don't know why it didn't pick up the CSS file at all, though. That's really odd. So notice how different it is from here, where it clearly has the CSS applied, to here, where it doesn't. I don't really mind either way, because I'm going to totally change this anyway, but... interesting. Huh. Okay, we're learning stuff, see? We're learning stuff. The whole point of going end to end on something like this. Okay, so what we've shown so far is that we can manually export an article from my, or a note from Bear as a Markdown file. We can add it as a commit to our, or a file in our new, we can add it as a file in our Markdown pages directory of our Gatsby site. We can then have a commit of that and a PR that opens up, and once that PR closes, it will automatically get posted, published to the web. So I'm not going to publish it yet. I'm not going to publish it to master or production yet until the end of this session. We may want to actually do some styling as well. Also, if you notice, there's actually no way to get a where is it? If you notice, there was actually no way to get to this article. There's no link, no index of things that links over to it that we can get to. So we'll need to build that too, but I think that'll be pretty straightforward using Gatsby's ability to loop over pages, but we'll find out soon enough. Okay, onward to the next step. So the goal was not to make my personal website awesome for displaying articles. It was to get this writing system in place so we can go from notes in my bear to articles on my site and the snap of a finger. So where are we at right now? We've got this process that we can do it manually. How should we automate it? So there are a couple options here. We have this idea of potentially doing a GitHub action that uses the create pull request action here. So here's how, this is an example of the way GitHub Actions are formatted. You'll see this, they're basically a declarative way to specify something that you want to happen. And what's magical is as these things run, this is like YAML formatted stuff. As create pull request is run, it can have multiple steps in it. And one of those steps can be the create pull request. So this create pull request will basically do everything we need in terms of pull request on GitHub to merge PR to publish. What we need to happen is we need an action here that actually allows us to, what is this checkout? Actions checkout. Interesting. Sorry. So what we need here is an action here that reads from the SQLite database, grabs the articles that need to be updated, and then saves them locally, I guess. Like if you look at this, what this run is doing, this is creating a new file called report.txt on the local file system, and then create PR pull request does the rest based on that change. So we need something like this that creates a new Markdown file. Let's see what's out there. So GitHub, I've only written like one GitHub action, so I'm not super familiar with it. But if we can solve that first step in the GitHub Actions workflow, then we can use GitHub Actions for the entire thing, assuming that we can get the SQLite database off my local computer or off my iOS box into a place where we can access it somewhere else. Okay, how might this work? Bloop, bloop, titty bloop, bloop, bloop. I'm wondering what I need to look at. Basically, what I'm going to do now is spend the next 6 or 7 minutes going through examples of different GitHub Actions that already exist and just kind of try to get my head around what some of the possibilities are and how they're configured before I before I start thinking about the actual perfect workflow. So here's some publishing ones. You can upload a release asset to an existing release, create a release, update article information, add reference information as comment, and modify issue title. GitHub Action for WP Engine Git deployment. Cool. Hugo Actions, commands to help with building Hugo-based sites. Published to Ruby Gems. Hugo blog publisher, push a Hugo blog. That's interesting. I wonder if I just search for blog or database. Oh. All these databases I can start, Postgres's, SQLite even, MySQL. Yeah, I can just read. SQLites are just flat files, so I can definitely just read a SQLite. Let me see what their blog post, their thing does. Set up Git. Commit website files. Upload files. Begin publishing workflow. Blog is located at blog path. Setting up Git. Get blog path. Commit website files. Upload files. Done. let's go back to blog. Dev blog post to Jekyll Markdown. Search for new dev blog post and raise a PR when the post converted, with the post converted to Jekyll Markdown post. That's pretty slick. There's also dev.to posts. This action does the following. Search for a dev contributor's latest blog post using the dev API. Check to see if the newest dev post is newer than the latest post in the Jekyll repository. This is very similar to what we want to do. If the dev post is newer than the newest repository post, raise a pull request in the repository. That's pretty cool. Convert dev post to Jekyll Markdown. So maybe we do want to make an action for this. Man, a whole new other thing to learn though. But I feel like this would probably be more testable and repeatable than as well as something I could share with other people if that were useful. Let's see, index.js, what's he doing here? So he wrote his whole thing in JavaScript. Very similar thing here. Oh, this is actually the same. It's like somebody cloned. Huh. All right. So we could definitely write something to do this using a GitHub Actions. The reality is we need to do two things. We still need to upload our our SQLite database somewhere where it can be accessed and read, and then we need to write a script to extract our SQLite most recent posts and then save them as Markdown files somewhere. So why don't we do this? Why don't we break this down again so we can kind of apply the end-to-end strategy to each step of this post. So if we think about the fact that we are in our in this workflow, we have an option for this that will work for this step. A GitHub action will solve this problem entirely for us, which is pretty cool. And so the one that we don't know about yet is this. How do we update a new Markdown file? So let's see if we can go end to end here and actually write the Ruby code that opens the SQLite database and pulls out the most recent Markdown files and then stores them locally. That alone would be a pretty sweet kind of introduction to the process. We might also be able to generate the front matter in that process. And if we write that in such a way, I think GitHub Actions can be anything. I think you can use Ruby even. Yeah, so we could write a GitHub action. So if we can just write the Ruby code to do this, which is what I'm most familiar with, is why I'm going to write that, do it that way, then we could build a little GitHub action. Oh, Eileen codes. We could build a GitHub action using Ruby that would do this as these two steps as one, and then that would give us everything we need. And then the only problem we would have to solve at that point would be, how do we upload our SQLite database to some place and store it, and where is that place? Okay, so yeah, we're at the end of a Pomodoro here. I'm going to take a quick break, and we'll have 5 minutes, and I'll be back to try and go end to end on reading a SQLite database and getting the most recent posts from that database, and going from there. All right, see you short. Bye. Alrighty, so we're back. So we are now 3 Pomodoros. This is starting our 4th Pomodoro on building a writing workflow system that takes my bare node apps and gets them published to my website. So we're now about to go end to end. We're about to work on a tiny little step in that process, which is the step of actually going from taking our bare notes out of the bare SQL file, SQLite file, and then saving them as Markdown files. So we're going to write a little Ruby script to do that. We already have different solutions that already work for different steps in the process, and so this is one of the steps that we don't have an idea on is to update a new Markdown file, and then the other one we don't have is upload SQLite somewhere. So we don't know how we're going to do that either, but we'll figure that out in a second. Well, let's focus on if we had the SQLite file direct locally, could we use Ruby to read from it the most recently changed notes? And I'm not exactly sure how we'll define that, but that's the whole purpose of doing this. So let's go over to our trusty little iTerm, open a new tab, go back, and we'll create a new directory for this script, and we'll call it read. Or actually, we'll call it SQLite to MD. Bare SQLite to MD. That seems like a reasonable name. Bare SQLite to MD. I'm going to go ahead and copy that. We're going to copy the SQL database.sqlite to that new folder, so that we have a copy of it to play with. I'm going to go ahead and do a git init here and make this into a git repo. I'm going to add a git ignore file. And to that git ignore file, I'm going to add database.sqlite. All right, great. So now let's go ahead and add a Ruby file here. This is going to be to md.rb. And let's open this in VS Code. I'll go ahead and peel this particular one off. And then I can line these two up next to each other. Sweet. All right, so we've got our Ruby file now. And I don't know how to do this. Let's see, Ruby read SQLite DB. Looks like there is a SQLite 3 database engine. Cool. All right, let's see if there's anything. SQLite 3. All right, so first we're going to get SQLite 3. Let me go ahead and add a gem file here. Let's see this. Got it. Another tutorial over here. I'm trying to remember how. I think I have my setup currently set up with gem SQLite 3. Too bad I know that in package JSON VS Code tells you the current version of things. It would be sweet if it did that for gem files as well. But alas, it's like 142. That's what we want. And looks like we're gonna need copy // Spotify new releases *-version here. Really? Huh. I don't know why I didn't. I thought in VS or in. Anyway. Alright, tool version. I don't need Node.js. And so let's do a back out of this directory and go back in. And that should set up my ASDF, I believe. And then I should be able to do a gem install. Huh. So it doesn't have me in a. Trying to remember how I set up a packet or a gem file using ASDF. Am I not using ASDF here? ASDF list, ASDF current. Yeah, whatever. Oh, no server sources. Yep. Let's set up a server source. Source. There we go. Bundle install. And then I should be able to do. Now we should be able to follow this. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is require SQLite 3. And we already have the database, so we can do db open database.sqlite. And let's see if we can just run that simple thing. I do not want to create a table. I do not want to insert or update. I want to query. Select path. I wonder if there's something I can do that's really straightforward. Alright, let's open our DB browser. Database using SQLite. Alright, cool. We got this again. Database structure. ZFS to do. That's interesting. Nothing in that table. ZFS note. So we probably want to do like a select. What do we do to select count star from? How do I do a select statement? All right, results equals db.query. Let's do a really simple select count star from what is it? ZFS notes. ZFS note. ZFS note. And then we'll do a puts of results. And let's run that. Ruby SQLite MD. And we got a fail, initialize, bundle exec Ruby. Nope. SQL exception. No such table. Okay. Maybe I need to wrap it in single quotes. I wasn't reading carefully. No, it doesn't seem to be. And it looks like everything is create table ZFS node. Are there multiple databases in here that I need to be selecting from? Interesting. It does make use of indices. Like if I run execute select, let's copy paste that query in here. No such table ZFS note. ZSF. Okay, there you go. Appropriate. ZSF. All right, let's try that again. Ah, it's a result set. Doggone it. So then how do I interact with result sets? First result equals results.next. So there must be some sort of iterator. Alternatively, to only get one row and discard the rest, replace db. Aha, we do bdb.getFirstValue. And then let's see if that works. 695, sweet. Okay, so we are now querying the database appropriately. Okay, so we're hitting the table. So then what do we want our query to look like? We want to get the markdown file. So let's come over here and write some code comments as open the database, select get notes from the database that what? So what we're going to want to do is get notes that have updated since the last time we ran this script. That's the reality. We're not going to want to grab them all. We're also only going to want to grab ones that are tagged for publishing. So I don't know exactly how I'm going to do that tag for publishing. I'd imagine that I'm going to do something along the lines of this. Publish. Or something along those lines. And then what that does is it adds it to a tag in bear, which is right there. Shows me the published ones, but then that should hopefully, yeah. So, goodness. Okay, how might we do this? What does the DFS change? Maybe I can just grab changes this way, or maybe I don't even need to. Oh, interesting. It has 695. Oh wait, I'm looking at ZFS note. ZFS change night, not that. External changes, nothing in it. Internal changes, nothing in it. Folder, nothing. Location, nothing. Note, lots of things. Note, file. These are probably files, like actual files. Note, file, server, data, note, server, data. Note, tag. No passwords. ZSF server metadata. Static note. To do. furl or FURL, linked notes, linked by notes, tags. Ah, this is the notes tags table. Sweet. So this is the join table that allows us to get notes that have a specific tag. So then what we're going to want to do is, here we go. Now that I've seen that, I kind of know what the next path is. Are tagged with publish or updated after a specific time. Once a day? I think that would be often enough. If this just ran on a cron job once a day, we could get things that have updated after daily. Yeah. Okay. And then finally, oh shoot, I realized the whole time you guys have been looking at the whiteboard and not at my screen. I'm so sorry. You should now be looking at my screen. My bad. I've been sitting here doing all this coding, and you've been looking at my whiteboard. Okay, so let me catch you up on where we are then. You've been listening to me muddle through creating a Ruby script. So right now, really fast, catch up. We have a Ruby script that is going to connect to a SQLite database and extract certain records and then save those records to a Markdown file. So I've created a really simple repo here that has a gem file for the SQLite 3 gem, has a Ruby file that accesses the local database and then writes a select and then starts to output the results. So we're still in the middle of creating this handy dandy little script, and yeah, let's see how far we can get with it. Okay, so we want to select notes that were updated after a specific time. How about after last night at midnight? And then we'll want to, once we get those, take the text from the file, from the note, and generate and save to a text file with a .md ending. We may want to append Frontmatter to the I think we do want to append Frontmatter. I'm thinking about this because what's going to happen is we're going to create this pull request and create this file. What if we make changes to the file? In the process of creating the file the first time, I'm not sure that I'm going to want to use the same slug. So if we auto-generate a slug, I'll probably want to change the slug before accepting the pull request and merging it in. And that means that the slug would be continually being auto-generated incorrectly. So we may want to just have the Frontmatter be part of the blog post and strip it off. We would need to append the Frontmatter anyway, so I think what I'm going to do is just make that a new part of my Bear workflow. Like I'll write the Frontmatter in Bear. So that would look like dash dash dash. Oof, this is going to be tough because Frontmatter has 3 dashes, and in Bear that formats itself as, see, that's actually 3 dashes. So that gets formatted like this. I think it's going to be fine though, because the reality is what that's just Bear changing how it looks. So when we do the export, it will probably be the 3 dashes appropriately. So then we have slug, title, date. So I'll have to remember to update this date. Although we can always change it. Now I'm thinking I might want to add the date automatically using the script. Okay, getting too far in the weeds here. Let's just get it working, and then make it better. Append Frontmatter to the note, to the Markdown file. Probably not. We're going to let it be the front matter that is in bare. So front matter should already be in bare. Okay, and then get the text from the note for each result. Create a text file with a .md ending. Okay, we can do this. All right, select count. So the trickiest part is going to be doing the join on finding the tag, the thing that's tagged. So let's use a tag that does already exist, but doesn't have a whole lot of tags. Doesn't have a whole lot on it. So I think worth it, I believe, only has one note that is tagged with that. So let's say select count. This is where I always have to look up SQL joins. Alright, so here we go. Table of groups, table of these, and table there. Whoa, what is this SQL fiddle? Is that still a thing? Whoa! That's amazing. Oh, super cool. Okay, interesting. So you could actually test everything out in an interactive console. That is super cool. Oh goodness, we're about to run out of time. Okay, so we've got 1 minute left. So what I'm going to do with this last minute, we have made a lot of progress on this, but I want to cut it off at 4 Pomodoros. So what I'm going to do right now is get this new repo checked into some place where I can come back to it. So let's go to Jess Martin and create a new repo. Repositories, new. This is going to be bare SQLite to MD. Ruby script to export bare notes from SQLite. To Markdown files. Public, initialize with a repo. Alright, cancel. Give me a second. We're going to get this up and running, and then I will wrap us up, bring us home here. All right. Get. Oh man, trying to remember the get remote or get remote thingy. It is. I think I can do get add remote master. It's like this or something. Get remote. Oops. Get branch set upstream. Should have just Googled how to do this instead of trying to do it this way, but that's okay. Get pull origin master. There we go. I don't have any git commits yet. All right, I think we're good now. Git add initial version of script to read from SQLite. All right, cool. Now let's update our README to make sense. So, README. Bear SQLite to Markdown. A simple Ruby script to export bare notes from SQLite. Note is still experimental. And we'll throw in a nice little warning sign here, lest you come and think you can just grab this and go with it. All right. README. What? Did I not make the change? Oops. There we go. Oh, geez. Let me do this. I can do it through the editor here. Boom. Get up there at Markdown. All right, cool. So we may eventually turn this into a little action to do it, but this has been a pretty sweet little exploration. All right, so cool. Well, thanks for hanging out today on Coding with Jess, where you code along with me while I build a thing. So today we've been working on a writing workflow, which takes a bare note app, a bare note from my bare system, and publishes it to my blog, which is written in Gatsby fairly automatically. We made a lot of progress on it today. We were playing with several new technologies that I wasn't familiar with, so we didn't make quite as much progress as I would like. But we did get one blog post published, which I'll push out to Twitter very shortly here once I clean up the styling a little bit. And we have an idea for how to do to use GitHub Actions, which I've never used before, to set up this whole workflow so that it's kind of repeatable and most importantly hosted under some sort of reliable systems that are not my systems. So we'll see how that works. Thanks for hanging out with me on Coding with Jess, and I'll see you next time.